Hi, Cole here from Storytelling with Data. I took a super fun trip recently to Versailles, Kentucky, to the Sheridan plant where Storytelling with You printed. And I found it to be just this fascinating process, which I've been telling everybody about. So I thought I'd take some time to share it with you today. I'll start with paper plates and, of course, a printing press. So this is the press that printed Storytelling with You. And it's hard to get a sense of scale. So we're walking up to this machine. And actually, if we continue around right words, here's the side of it. Get a sense of how big it is, right? So there's my husband, Randy, on the left there taking a photograph. And actually, if we continue right words, we'll walk past the ink and then eventually to the other side of the press where all of the paper is. And so this is paper that's being staged that will eventually turn into Storytelling with You. It gets loaded into the press. And actually, there's two of these rolls in the press at any given time so that printing just happens continually. It never has to stop for new paper to be loaded. Let's take a look at the size of those rolls. So each of those weighs something like 500 pounds. Back here is where we can see those rolls of paper loaded in the press. There's one at the top, and there's actually one down below that as well. I'll direct your attention next to this room in the back. So it's next to the press. This is actually where the plates were made. So if we peer in through that window, we can see the plates. And these are actually what are used to print the book. There are two sets of plates for each 32-page spread. And that's one for each side of the printed sheet. And together, this is known as a form. There are four versions of each of those plates, one for each color of ink: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Let's take a look at some plates here. So you can see it's taller than I am, right? So it's one of those 32-page spreads for the blue ink there. And we see actually the ink on the right. This paper is flying past the cyan and magenta ink. Here I am with my editor, Bill, taking a look at one of the plates. And actually, I'll zoom in on what I was pointing out to him, which is a photo of my kids that's used in one of the sections of the book about framing presentations. So after going past the ink and through the dryer, which is what we saw Randy standing next to in the photograph that I showed earlier, the printed sheets get folded, then cut in half, and then each of those halves goes through a second and third fold. And then that creates a 32-page signature. So it's happening with both sides of those cut paper. So there are two of those signatures printing at a given time. And actually, I have some. I stole them off the press, but I thought it would be fun to show you here. So this is one of those 32-page signatures. I have here page 201 through 232. And actually, notice it's a weird size, one, right? It's strangely tall and wide. And also, you can't flip through because it's folded. So we can unfold several times, and then we get to what's actually going on here. And so this eventually will be trimmed once it gets joined up with everything else. And actually, I have another one here that did get trimmed, not officially, but they had a paper cutter at the press and one of the techs trimmed it up for me. So notice now we can flip through. So this is now a form, two signatures together. And I have a page marked here that I wanted to show you, which is the final version of what we saw on the plate a little bit earlier. They actually let me start the press a couple of times, which is super fun. And you can't do it by accident, right? So it's that big red button that starts the press. And then things start rolling. And actually, the first couple hundred signatures are used to calibrate everything. So what we see here is a signature that was pulled off at different points in those first few hundred signatures as things are calibrating. That means the ink's coming on, things are getting aligned. And so you see the colors getting bolder and everything getting crisper. While all of this calibration is happening, signatures are flying off the machine into a recycle bin. which is sort of sad, but also what helps us make sure we've got quality product. And so while that's happening, we're looking at the pages, right? And particularly under bright lights, where we can check for things like color consistency, crispness, all of those things. The buttons you see at the bottom there are what can do the adjustments if needed. So when we have these pages under the bright lights, we're looking for issues. Actually, there is an issue on this page. Can you spot it? There's an errant mark here, which might not be anything if it's only on one page, but it turns out it was happening on every single page that we were seeing here. And the problem was that the plate had been mishandled and there was a scratch on it, which meant the waxy surface that's supposed to keep the ink away on the blue plate here wasn't doing its job any longer. There's an easy fix for that, which is the scratch remover. So stop the press, wipe down the plate, and we're good to go again. Once fully running, our press was producing 20,000 forms per hour. That's 40,000 signatures, which meant it took about 90 minutes for the initial 30,000 unit print run. I'm going to pause here for just a moment so we can appreciate the speed of this machine. I certainly didn't want to stick my hand anywhere near the machines, but Brian, the production manager, that's him there, pulled a stack of signatures for me. And so I took a few minutes to do a little bit of signing. Specifically, 18 of those 30,000 initial books will have a special message from me inside. Maybe it will be yours. So signatures leave the press and they get routed along the ceiling over to another spot where they get stacked onto pallets. And actually, there was a fun robot at this part of the process. He would reach over and grab it and move and stick it on a pallet. And then he'd turn in the other direction and do the same thing with the second signature. So once full, each pallet gets moved to a holding spot, later to be joined up with the others. And after the print run of one of those forms is finished, press is stopped, plates for the next one are loaded, and then the process starts all over again. It took 6 forms or 12 of those 32-page signatures to create Storytelling with You, all of which were printed on a single long day on August 17th, 2022. On another day, the cover will print on a different machine. Then everything gets put into an assembly line to be joined up, bound, and trimmed into the final book. From there, the books are boxed up, labeled, and sent to distribution centers to soon be shipped to retailers around the country. And of course, shipped to you. See the finished product? Order your copy of Storytelling with You today. I hope you enjoyed this peek into the book production process, and I'll see you next time.